Welcome back to 316 Exposure. Always controversial, sometimes uncomfortable, but always honest. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe. We are a new channel and need your support. If you want instant notifications, ring the bell in the top right-hand corner of your screen.
What would you do if I were to tell you that there is someone so perverted, so sick, so disgusting, so vindictive, so vile, and so obsessed with your children that they will do anything in their power to destroy their innocence, ruin their lives, rob them of the knowledge of God, and murder them both spiritually and physically? This person is not found in any post office bulletin boards. The police are not putting out an APB. There are no alerts saying he's moved into your neighborhood. He's not registered with any child protective service groups as a pedophile or anything like that. His attacks are so insidious and hideous, so meticulously calculated that often he has already crept in unaware and captured your children right before your eyes. He is crafty, subtle, cunning, convincing, and devious. He is a master of deception, the father of all lies, the fallen one, and make no mistake, he wants your children. He is subtle, cunning, and devastating. In 1962, the devil successfully got prayer thrown out of schools, and he used a little loudmouth woman to accomplish his plan. Almost immediately, things began to decline. Soon after prayer was removed from schools, there was a rise every year of teenage pregnancies to young school-age mothers. Alcohol consumption among the youth began rising, premarital sex had become commonplace, and violent crimes escalated. Drug use became more and more open, and the list just goes on. Now here we are in this day, and things are even worse. You don't know if when you send your kid off to school that they will come home. You wonder, is someone going to have been a ticking time bomb, just waiting to explode, and today just happened to be the day they walk in the school and open fire on unsuspecting children? Not long ago, I heard on the news about a six-year-old kid that was arrested in his kindergarten class for carrying a knife to school. 6-year-old, guys. So in part one of this 3-part series, we're going to begin by discussing the sexual influences on children's lives in today's society. Nearly all facets of children's lives are in some way influenced by sex. I think the more you learn what society is teaching your children, the more you will want to protect them from its pernicious influence. Throngs of young people are being brainwashed by a daily diet of perversion, debauchery, titillation, stimulation from the moral wasteland that is Hollywood, teen magazines, television, music videos, and even aspects of the modern education system. This indoctrination of pop culture has led to a disturbing, violent picture. Children of varying ages are taught to be tolerant of all forms of sexual expression. Many Hollywood movies show minors in sexual situations and, at times, sexual acts with adults. In high school, teens are taught experimentation is nothing more than learning who they are. However, the underlying root of the tolerance movement goes much, much deeper. Educators have gone beyond simply teaching tolerance and acceptance of someone with different physical attributes, such as race, height, weight, body type, etc. Tolerance now encompasses acceptance and promotion of every action, every type of behavior, no matter how extreme or perverse. There is now always a reason and excuse for what is simply wrong conduct. Being tolerant has become that excuse. In order to fully understand the diabolical satanic method, we need to first look back at the inception of this atrocity. Now, keep in mind, evil has no clock. The strategic plan to capture our children has been going on for centuries.
That's the one with filter blend up front.
Sure, that's the big difference, Barney.
Campbell Soup Company, known the world over for quality.
Do you have any teenage sons or daughters?
I've only got this boy, but I think I want the teenagers to enjoy themselves.
Excuse me.
Oh, he's got you now. Go on.
Teenagers, do you think they're better or worse than they used to be?
No, and good luck to them for all that they're like.
Because when I was a teenager, as they call them now, my mother wouldn't let me do anything. Now, where did it get me? And now I'm a poor old lady left with only my memories. So what I'd like to do now, I can't because I'm too old. Good luck to the teenagers, and I reckon they're all right. You know, you can't put a rope around everyone's neck.
Honeycomb, honeycomb, yippee-yi-yay, have a honeycomb breakfast, and you have a great day, great honeycomb day. New post honeycomb now is bite-sized post honeycomb. For a crisp, a crunchy, a treat at home, new bite-sized, rat-sized honeycomb. Honeycomb, honeycomb, yippee-yi-yay, have a honeycomb breakfast, and you have a great day, great honeycomb day.
New bite-sized post honeycomb, crisper, crunchier, better than ever.
There are three landmark cases that changed the meaning of the First Amendment as it was previously understood and practiced in America. In these three cases, a parent of a child in school petitioned the courts to stop the school from exposing their child to prayer in school and reading the Bible in school. ACLU lawyers used Thomas Jefferson's letter in the argument for the plaintiffs. They argued that the Founding Fathers wanted a wall of separation between church and state. Therefore, the government should be neutral to religion in schools, and as a result, the Warren Court ruled that there would be no prayer in school or Bible reading. The court's majority ruling reasoned that being neutral or not favoring one religion over another was the same as not allowing religious practices in school. Justice Potter Stewart, the one dissenting vote, blasted the ruling, saying it led not to true neutrality with respect to religion, but to the establishment of religion or secularism. Secularism being defined as the elimination of any religious elements within public education and other civic institutions. True neutrality would not favor one religion over another, but the court's ruling favored atheism over all the other religions of the world that believed in God. Atheism has been declared as a religion by the U.S. Supreme Court, so the court did not act neutrally, but instead favored godless religion over all others. A recent national poll indicated 85% of Americans believe in the existence of God, yet the court ruled with the minority atheist. If the court had really been true to its intention of neutrality, it would have been impartial to the students by neither forcing non-believers to pray nor prohibiting believers from prayer, so the court's actions were not neutral. The system had adopted a prayer to be said before the start of each day of classes. This prayer was to help promote good moral character of the students, spiritual training, and help combat juvenile delinquency. The regents wrote a prayer for the school which had to be non-sectarian or denominational. It was so bland it became known to some religious leaders as the "to whom it may concern" prayer. Here's what the Regency prayer said. Almighty God, we acknowledge our dependence upon Thee, and we beg Thy blessings upon us, our parents, our teachers, and our country. Justice Hugo Black wrote the following for the majority. It is no part of the business of government to compose official prayers. The Regent's Prayer are inconsistent both with the purposes of the Establishment Clause and the Establishment Clause itself. With standard jurisprudence, the court cites previous cases in making its rulings. However, not one previous case was cited in this ruling. So why were no other cases cited? Simply because there were none which would support its decision. For 170 years following the ratification of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, no court had ever struck down any prayer in any form or any location. While the court invoked no judicial precedents to sustain its decision, it did employ some strategic psychological rhetoric. Recall the court's comment that these principles were so universally recognized. But these principles were not recognized by most Americans, and these decisions caused an uproar in congressional hearings. Even though the Founding Fathers plainly stated that religion and morality were to be a part of society and government, the court was not particularly interested in the Founders' views on this subject. In fact, it openly acknowledged its contempt for America's heritage when it remarked that New York prayer seems relatively insignificant when compared to the governmental encroachments upon religion which were commonplace 200 years ago. The Warren Court decided to ignore the Founding Fathers' intent and the Constitution and substitute the separation of church and state for the First Amendment. I felt it important to at least spend some time on where the removal of prayer originated. And as you can see, once upon a time in pre-1960s, obscenity laws were enforced. Parents forbade their kids, especially girls, to date until they were at least 16. Sex was an intimate and private matter. Schools emphasized academics and good manners. Modesty and humility were virtues, and children were protected from disturbing and violent materials, unlike they are today. The only kinds of safeguards afforded to modern youth are protection from A, parents, B, religious morality, C, fast food and trans fats, and D, global warming or cooling, whichever. Obscenity is defined as graphic material that focuses on sex or sexual violence, including lewd exhibitions of genitals, close ups of sex acts, and deviant activities such as group sex, bestiality, and incest. Once a child has seen this stuff, one can't just take it back. It is the equivalent of shock and awe to the brain. The results may not become obvious for years, meaning that harm is not provable in the legal sense, and pornographers can build their empires without fear of a lawsuit. Look, there's no arguing that sexually suggestive images and references are everywhere these days. The old adage that sex sells seems to have been taken to a whole new level. I mean, we see advertisers using scantily clad women riding mechanical bulls in order to sell, what, hamburgers. And sitting in a room with your children when a liquid plumber commercial airs has become downright uncomfortable. We all have to admit over the years the line between appropriate versus inappropriate topics in the media seems to have blurred, especially when it comes to time frames reserved for general family viewing and or listening, that is, if there is such a thing anymore. Between the music, TV shows, commercials, and even the news, there does not appear to be a topic or image that's not off limits. Like I said prior, when a child is subject to these perverted images at such a young age, it's a complete shock and awe. There's no turning back. The confusion of something so graphic without the ability to understand it will lead to major mental hurdles in the future. Even possible, yes, gender dysphoria, which involves conflict between a person's physical or assigned gender and the gender with which he, she, they identify. The new transgender drag movement is being shoveled down our kids' mouths. Local public libraries are now holding what are called drag queen story hours designed for children 2 to 8 years old. I'm certain you'll find this one shocking. At the Michelle Obama Neighborhood Library in Long Beach, California, this drag queen appears to be dressed as the Baphomet or Satan. I mean, what exactly are children learning about sexuality here, and how does it benefit society for a homosexual man to dress up in exaggerated women's clothing? I mean, along with a glittery demon mask to read children's books to children. I mean, as you can see, the backdrop is of a heavenly rainbow and clouds, as if to say that all Earth's magic and beauty is being encompassed by a demonic figure. I mean, is the message that gay people aren't as bad as they are made out to be, or is the intention to cause controversy just to get attention? It would be hard to demonstrate that someone who dresses in such a way is not seeking attention. However, is that itself just a facade intended to distract away from real and felt agenda? To change human perceptions about love, life, and what real balance is? Meanwhile, we have Desmond Naples, a 10-year-old boy, drag kid, being photographed with a naked adult drag queen wearing nothing but heels and a small piece of fabric covering his genitals. No arrest, no charges filed, no child abuse, nothing. However, our friends over at NBC promoted and published the video in a tweet. The same boy had performed a dance number at a gay bar while collecting dollar bills from the adult men in the crowd. Let's move on, ladies and gentlemen. I need to get this out there too before I forget. You can't make this stuff up. At least 2 new animated television shows about drag queens, one featuring children's characters, are set to debut in America. On May 31st, Netflix announced the animated Super Drags. They have a quick synopsis about the cartoon, and it goes on to say, in a world on the brink of chaos where fear is the rule of land, the voices of a generation have banded together to give our planet what it needs, baby drag queens. And that's what they proclaim on the preview on YouTube. So keep an eye out for that so you can keep your children away from it. You know, sometimes I wonder what exactly is going on in the minds of some of these parents on planet Earth. It appears that many are content just to let others make decisions for them all day long and never take any responsibility for their children's development at all. What I feel is occurring is that in the face of hypocrisy and error on the part of the mainstream voices of authority, many are deceived into choosing to go on to an opposite extreme without seeking the middle point that's balanced. It is this kind of dynamic that is being exploited by those who seek to dominate and corrupt society in every way possible and for their own reasons. As a consequence, we are becoming immune to behavior and topics that we were once considered inappropriate for common consumption. So, what effect is this having on our children and us overall? A main consequence of all this openness and freedom of topic is the exposure of our children to things that they should have years before having to think about as a young adult. I mean, when your child asks you why an erection lasting more than 4 hours is bad after watching a very poorly timed Cialis commercial, you have to wonder if we have become too open. There are several other negative outcomes as well. Overly sexualized children. The lyrics to even the radio edited versions of many of the most popular songs today are wildly suggestive. And a great deal of TV available during what used to be considered family viewing hours makes sex seems like it's no big deal. Not to mention what children can be exposed to on the internet. As a result, we have children who are too familiar with topics that are completely beyond their years and far too complex for them to understand. Early sexual experiences, although sexual experiences in the teen years have been happening for ages, they haven't always been so overt. Kids have become used to the idea of sex, and some things like oral sex have become a matter of course for many. The distorted view of intimacy, and whether it's teens or adults, too much exposure to sexualized information can create a very superficial view of intimacy. We start to lose what is special about the intimate relationship because it's all made to seem so casual and commonplace. Our youth is without a doubt being desensitized. When they see and hear something over and over, it no longer seems like a big deal. So when we see body parts, witness experiences, and hear discussions that should all really be kept private, our sense of privacy goes out the window. And my final thought, I'm going to start by saying that there's a definite war waging all around us, and it's one none of us can escape. And it has nothing to do with politics, although the left drives the narrative. Keep in mind what's really controlling the battle. And like it or not, we all are participants in an ongoing war between God and Satan for the hearts of our souls of man. Without a doubt, the battlefield of human sexuality is an area of particularly violent struggle. Whether parents want to acknowledge it or not, our children are thrust into this battle at a far younger age than we can imagine. What would we see if we were able to glimpse into the war room of hell? What if we could get inside the minds of our enemy and gain access to his plans and strategies? I may not have the ability to sneak into the war room of hell and, for a peek at what our enemy is up to, but based on what I know of him from scripture, I can presume what I would do if I were Satan. So let me put a new spin on the role of devil's advocate and outline a suggested plan of what I would do on the sexual battlefield if I were Satan. First, I would task my best people with messing up human sexuality. This would not be a passive attack, but a full frontal assault with all the powers of darkness at my disposal. A key element would be the deceptive plan to convince people that their sexuality is a simple biological drive, not a critical dimension of their spiritual lives. Second, I would lull parents into a deep passivity, keeping them distracted from the needs of their kids. I would make them busy with work, sports, church, the simple management of home in such a way that they would become oblivious to their lack of meaningful relationship with their children. Third, I would give special attention to destroying the father-daughter relationship. If I can shift a girl's unsatisfied longing for her father's heart over to the desire of a boyfriend and the attention he offers, there's nothing I can't do to mess up her life. I mean, that girl would become one I can destroy with both hands tied behind my back. Next, I would put tons of energy into convincing young people that in the area of sex, the world is credible and their parents are clueless. I'd take every opportunity to confirm that casual sex is fun and exciting, and sex within marriage is dull and boring. Movies, TV, music video would be the ideal mediums for these messages. Next, I would saturate the world with sexual images, making sure young people in general and boys in particular got exposed to them at an early age. I'd take a lesson gleaned from my associates working in the cigarette industry. If we can get them hooked early, we'll have a customer for life. I would do all I could to mess up the sex lives of married couples, making them feel inadequate or incapable of teaching their kids about the subject. If I can make it a distasteful topic for parents, then talking about it with their kids would be distasteful as well. Finally, I would trick parents into thinking they have plenty of time to teach their children about sex, dating, and the power of emotional relationships. I would work hard to make sure that children encounter these issues long before mom and dad ever bring them up. And of course, this is what I would do if I were Satan, but what I would do doesn't matter. What matters is what he's already doing. And crafty as he is, Satan typically stays a step or two ahead of most believers. So my list is surely incomplete. He is likely doing everything I suggested and much more. And if that's the case, a strategic and aggressive response is needed. And guys, it's time for the parents to step up and act. And that's my take. And thank you for listening again, Patriots. Have a great evening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you.